This is Michael Orl of MobileBurn.com, and today I have with me the Blackberry Curve 8520, a new low-cost Blackberry Curve for T-Mobile USA. It's also the first device to come from RIM that sports the optical trackpad. It's an optical joystick kind of thing. Think of it as an optical mouse that's been turned upside down. It's used for navigation. Replaces the trackball, which sometimes can get caked with dust or suntan lotion in the summertime, and it doesn't work nearly as well as it should. The optical trackpad here won't have that problem, but it's perhaps a little less easy to control, although there are settings for sensitivity. Let's take a look at the rest of the physical design of the device first, though. On the left-hand edge, you can see we have a 3.5mm audio headphone port. There's a micro USB connector for power and data, and it's a little hard to see here, but there's a bump that sticks out here, and that's the left user controllable, user configurable button. Defaults to voice dialing. On the back of the phone, 2-megapixel fixed focus camera. This is the frost color scheme. It's kind of an ice blue. On the right hand edge, 2 more bumps here for volume control and another user configurable button. Defaults to the camera. Not too much to see on the bottom other than the hole for the microphone. On the top of the device, we do have some changes though. Instead of having just the mute button and a lock button, there's no lock button now, but we have the mute button. It can be used also for starting and stopping the music player. And there are previous and next track buttons. So we'll just start up the music player. And pause and play. And we can skip to the next track or the next track like that. It's pretty easy to access. The lack of a lock button is probably mitigated a bit by the fact that the call, end, and send keys, as well as the menu and escape keys, are now flush mounted. They are not touch sensitive by any stretch. There's still a tactile click to them, but they don't stick out, so they're less likely to be pressed when they're in your pocket or purse or something like that. Pulling a little tighter, take a look at the trackpad. You can see it's just a little square piece of dark colored plastic that senses your finger as it moves back and forth across it. Right now I have the audible click turned on just for the purposes of the video, but it can be disabled, and it is disabled by default. The display, it's a QVGA resolution display, so it's quite a downgrade from the better than half VGA resolution display it's on the Curve 8900, but the 8520 is quite a bit cheaper at $129. Nice curve style QWERTY keyboard on it. The keys have a really good feel. They're laid out quite well. Spacing's good. Everything's really nice except for backlighting. Backlighting in general across the bottom half of the device is fairly poor. It's inconsistent. Some of the keys, they're hard to read. It's not so hard in a really truly dark room, but when you're in middle lighting where things are just getting kind of dim, it can be quite difficult to read some of the letters and numbers and symbols that are on the keys. Backlighting on these buttons up across the top is also inconsistent. Kind of shows through at points when it shouldn't. Other than that, though, the keyboard works really well and has a very great feel, and people that like existing Curve models are really going to like this one. One last thing I want to point out on the 8520 Curve is that, like on the 8900 series, the rear cover is a weak point when it comes to build quality. It's not as loose as on the 8900, but it's very creaky. It's just really bad. RIM really has to pay attention to this more. I understand it's a relatively low-cost device, but there's got to be a better way to do it than something like this. This is the 8520's home screen, which we've seen already. The top row of the main menu shows up along the bottom of the home screen as quick access icons. You can see that they match up with what we see here at the top. So if we were to rearrange something and say put the My Faves icon up on the top row, it'll now show up on the home screen as well, right over here. Turn on the My Faves support, then you can scroll through your contacts. We don't have any configured. You'll also notice when I scroll up to the top, it goes to this little profile access menu, common to most Blackberries. This device is running version 4.6, not the newest one we've seen. This is the web browser on the 8520. You can see it does a fairly good job of rendering the MobileBurn website, but the QVGA display shows its limitations when you start zooming in. The text doesn't always come across very crisp. You can see it's very jagged looking Kind of depends on the font and the font size being used by the site. So even when we zoom in tighter here, it's still kind of messy. Not exactly sure what's going on there. But the optical mouse control works pretty well. Would work better if I had the sounds turned off. You can see it kind of buzzes a lot while you're doing it. Slows it down a bit. Speeds are pretty decent at the moment on the device because we're using a Wi-Fi connection. This is a UMA capable device, so works with T-Mobile's Hotspot at Home service. So right now all of our voice and data communications are going through our local Wi-Fi router. So you can see things come up pretty nicely. No flash support. See ads missing and things like that, but not a bad browser overall.